Hello, I'm René. Welcome to this tip and trick. What is control click? When I tell you it is our name for sub-selection, it already may become a little more clear. But as always, nothing makes it more clearer than examples you can see. So let's skip the theory and get started with some examples. Let's draw a simple square and make a copy of it. Select both squares and press Ctrl plus G to group them. So, what is a group? A group is any number of members considered as a unit. Well, that didn't clarify anything, did it? So let's take a look at this group. First, deselect everything by clicking once on the worksheet. And no matter if I now click on the left or I click on the right rectangle or square, both objects will be selected because it is a group. And no matter if I click and drag the left or click and drag the right square, both squares will move in relation to each other. Or should I say relationship. Also, when I scale or rotate a group, scale or rotate, both squares get scaled and both squares get rotated, but again in perfect relationship to each other. If I now select a different color from the color palette, both squares will get that color. And let's undo that. Because this is a property of a group that you most of the time can do without. Now this is only a group of two squares, but this could be a group of objects with logos and you don't want your logos to change color. So let's say you wanted to change the color of the left square to orange, but leave the color of the other square black. Well, simple you will say, just ungroup them, change the color and group them again. And you could be right with this simple example. But what if you have a group in a group in a group and so on? You get my drift. So let's forget the ungrouping. EasySIGN is all about not having to repeat something you've already did. Now, here you have the first situation where control click becomes useful. Just press the Ctrl key on your keyboard and click with the mouse on the left square. As you can see, we now have a sub-selection. You can see this because only the left square has now visible selection extents that are not little squares as usual, but little circles. If I now select orange from my color palette, only the left square is orange. I can also scale and rotate only the left square. If I now deselect everything and move one of the squares, the other square moves also. And the same if I rotate or scale. The group is untouched. By using Ctrl click I was able to change only the left square without ungrouping. Now let's delete this group and make it a little more complicated. Let's draw a new square, duplicate it, group it, Ctrl G, duplicate that group that again, and let's do it again. We have now a group in a group in a group and so on. So now I want to change the color of the top left square without ungrouping and regrouping everything. Of course, I'm going to use Ctrl click for this. So let's do this. I press the Ctrl key on my keyboard and click on the top left square. As you can see from the circular shaped selection extents, I have a group sub-selected. So let's click again. Another group is now sub-selected, so let's click again. I now have the object selected that I wanted to select. Now you can also see why it's important to have selection extents, otherwise it would be very difficult to see what you have selected. Now I click on orange on my color palette, and only the top left square is orange, and I didn't have to ungroup or regroup anything. If I now deselect everything and move the group, you can see the group is untouched. For those who have a little problem understanding this, no problem. As of Service Pack 5.0.10, we added something to make this even easier, and also to provide a different way of doing this. This new way of doing this makes it even possible to select objects you can't even see. But I will show you the selection of so-called invisible objects when we get to the effects. So how does this alternate method works? Simple. Just select a group, like here. Now click on the right mouse button and select Ctrl Select Next Object. So, right click, Ctrl Select Next Object. This method selects the next object in the worksheet's hierarchy of objects. So here the right subgroup is first selected. Let's do it again. Right mouse button, Ctrl Select Next Object. The second subgroup is now selected. Now right click again and select Ctrl Select Previous Object. As expected, the previous subgroup is now selected. But constantly right clicking could become a little cumbersome, so we added two shortcuts keys for this. Ctrl selecting the next object in the hierarchy is Alt plus arrow down, and selecting the previous option is Alt plus arrow up. Let's try that. Deselect everything and only select the group of squares. Now we just press Alt plus arrow down until we reach the object we want. In some cases this method is easier and indispensable, in some cases it is just easier to use Ctrl click. In this particular case, the fastest way to select the top left square is just using Ctrl click. We will however encounter cases where Ctrl click just can't reach an object, and in these cases the new method will prove indispensable. One very important thing to remember is when you have subselected an object, you have to deselect that object by clicking on a worksheet before you can select the parent again. Why? Let me show you. Currently, the top left square is subselected. If I now click anywhere on the group, you can see the selection handle changes and rotation handles and vice versa. This is of course necessary to be able to either scale or rotate a subselection. To be able to select the group again, I first have to deselect the subselection by clicking once on the worksheet and then selecting the group again. If there are any other objects in a worksheet that aren't part of that group, we can of course directly select or subselect one of the other objects. Let me show you. I will duplicate this group and I will quickly Ctrl select the top left orange square again. Now if I needed to select a second group, I just click that group. That's it. I can also directly Ctrl click this group. So let's do this again and press the Ctrl key, and I now have directly subselected the next object in a second group. Deselecting a current subselection is only necessary if you want to select the parent of that subselection. Now let's move on to effects and start with a simple example. First, let's clean the worksheet. Make sure the welding tool is visible. If not, just select the menu View, Welding Toolbar. Now, let's draw a circle. and make a copy of it that's overlapping the original circle. Select both circles and melt them by choosing the first option in the Weld toolbar. I will also switch to wireframe so you can see what has happened. The two circles are no longer two circles, but one new object. Since EasySIGN is object-oriented, the two circles still exist, and their individual properties can be changed to change the appearance of the new object. So let's say I wanted to change the size of the left circle. I could remove the effect, change the size, and weld them again. In this simple example, that could be done. But what if this was the first effect in a large stack of effects? Here also Ctrl-click is possible, and by far the easiest way to change something in a stack of effects, or even a single effect. So I just press the Ctrl key on my keyboard and click on the visible line of the left circle. The left circle is now sub-selected and I can change its size. Immediately the effect is recalculated. Now let's make this a little more complicated. First, clear the worksheet. Now I type text. With the drag tool I will space the characters so they will overlap each other by dragging this little thingy over here. Now I click on the melt objects again and I will add an outline and making sure hide original is off. Let's make it a little bit larger. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to change the word text into the word hello. First thing I have to do is make sure that the word text is selected. So I just press the Ctrl key on my keyboard and then click the word text. If I look at the status bar, I can see that I have a welding selected. So I click again with the Ctrl key still pressed. And now I can see in the status bar that I have a text selected. I could now start changing the text, but after every letter I type, the effect would be recalculated. This could become annoying if you had several effects stacked on top of each other, which would require some time to recalculate. But just for that, we also have a solution. We can temporarily isolate the text or any other object that is subselected to edit that subselection without any in-between recalculation of the effects. Make sure that you have the selected object toolbar visible. That's this little one here. If it isn't visible, just select View and select Selected Object. I have this toolbar always docked in the interface because it's a very useful toolbar. Now, with this text subselected, click the first option in the toolbar called Open the Selected Object. Now change the text to hello, and I will space it a little more to the left so this text is also overlapping. And now we click the second option on the toolbar called Close the Selected Object. The text is changed and the effects are recalculated. How easy can it get? Let's clear the worksheet. I draw a simple circle and I will apply an expand stroke. But this time I make sure that hide original is on. So let's say I wanted to change the circle into a pie shape, to change the resulting expand stroke effect. Let's try to control click what? I can see the original. So how can I select it? How can I select something that isn't there? Well, that's what the new functionality called Control Select Next or Previous Object is for. Select the object, press the right mouse button and select Control Select Next Object. Now the circle is selected and I can change it into a pie shape with the drag tool. And the expand stroke effect is automatically recalculated. You could, instead of using the right mouse button, also use the shortcut key Alt plus arrow down. Now let's look at a real world example. I will switch to a worksheet I have prepared. A logo made up of text objects, normal objects, clones and effects. Why like this and why not just curves? Well, it could be that the customer will change his name but wanted to use the same logo. When you leave the effects and text just as when you design them, you can always change these elements very easily later on, and without having to start from scratch again. Let's switch to wireframe. A perfectly plottable design, or plotable, I never can get that right, as you can see. It would be a shame if the number 23 had to be changed to something else and I had to do it all over again. But unfortunately the customer has changed his name into Club 33, so the logo has to be changed. Well, let's just do that. Since the logo has still all its text and effects present, as they were when I designed it, changing something is very easy. The only thing I will have to do is change the number 23 in 33. So let's select the text 23. In this case I have used clones and need to have the control text selected. The easiest way to do this is select the logo. And then press Alt plus arrow down until I have reached that text. While pressing Alt plus arrow down, I will have to watch the status bar and the worksheet to see what I have selected. Let's enlarge this one a little bit. So, in the status bar I can now see that I have the Control Artistic Text block selected. I now can press the Open Selected Object. Only the control text 23 is now visible. Since this is a control object of a clone, you will see a small recalculation. This is because clones always have to be recalculated. The other effects will only be recalculated when I close the object again. So let's change the text in 33. And close the object. The text is changed, the effects are all recalculated, and the logo is still ready to plot. I'm already finished to present the changes to the customer. Just imagine that you had to start from scratch. The few seconds work I've spent now could easily become or have become hours of work. By using the object-oriented and sub-selection possibilities of EasySIGN, you have just saved hours of work. I hope you have enjoyed this tip and trick and that it will be of use to you.